Okay, so this is day 3, part 3 of talking about pain flares. Now, if you haven't already gone and listened to parts 1 and 2, definitely go listen to those. And today I am super excited for this session because this is my jam. Okay, if you're joining me for the first time, I'm Alissa. I'm the founder of the Chronic Pain Breakup Method. I specialize in helping women with complex and persistent pain, and talking about how to go beyond managing pain is my jam. Okay, I love it because I've seen the struggles. I've seen people being told, there's nothing more we can do. There's nothing more you can do. Your pain is forever. You're going to have to learn to live with it. And I've seen it where even in my profession as a physical therapist, we were taught to encourage our patients to push through pain. No pain, no gain. If it hurts, that's normal. And pain is the only way that you know that it's actually working. And yet it's not working. It isn't working. It wasn't working. And this whole no pain, no gain kind of push at all costs mindset isn't helping. And it was interesting. The pain for some folks that some folks would experience, it wasn't that kind of good hurt, good hurt that you can expect after a hard workout, for example. What I was seeing wasn't that quote unquote normal pain. And so after questioning what I was taught and refusing to accept this as normal and refusing to be like everyone else in my field who just blamed the patient when they didn't get better or says, well, it must be all in your head. I said, there has to be a better way because the same physical therapy exercises aren't working. Even when we do just like more of them, they're not working. The pills, the shots, the injections, the RFA procedures, even the surgeries are not addressing the pain. And a lot of people, it was clear to me at least that people want something else. They grow tired of these band-aid solutions and they start looking for what they can do. And if you're anything like the hundreds of women that I've worked with, I'm willing to bet that you're looking for tools and strategies that will actually have an impact. And if that's you, I'm glad that you're here joining me, that you're listening here today and to this series, because that's what this is all about. And that's why I'm so excited for this session, because we're going to talk about those tools and strategies today. And I want you to know that there is more that you can do that doesn't involve pills and endless therapies and mind over matter kind of wishful thinking. Okay. Now, we've already talked about how longstanding pain is different, that if you're still struggling with pain, it's no wonder why the traditional treatment interventions haven't helped, because they don't address the pain system itself. Okay? They don't address the overactive pain pathways that are making the pain so intense and causing, it to feel so random and so inconsistent, causing it to feel so unpredictable. And it's like the volume got turned up and you feel everything more intensely. Yeah. So I also shared in part 1 how to manage your pain when it flares up, right? When it gets bad and spikes. And in part 2, I shared how to prevent your pain from flaring up. I shared with you why, right? Why looking for triggers is kind of a dead end, because it implies this kind of cause and effect relationship, right? But we know that pain is multifactorial. And so I introduced you to the term amplifiers and how amplifiers are like little pebbles that build up and can tip the scale towards a flare up. Now I'm going to change my slides because I'm totally on the wrong slide again. Love that. That's where we should be. And I also introduced you to protectors, right? Which are these things that can tip the scale the other way. And you learned that you can use both of these amplifiers and protectors to control your pain. Sometimes you can prevent your flare-ups entirely, giving you longer stretches of good days. And if, or really when, those flare-ups do happen, because you might not be able to prevent every single one of them, but when they do happen, you have a plan to manage them and to decrease the frequency and intensity and duration of those pain flares, right? So the first building block to ending pain flares is learning how to manage pain flares. The second is learning how to prevent pain flares. And so what's the third building block? Well, the third building block to ending pain flares is learning how to lower the overall sensitivity of the entire pain system. And that is what we're going to talk about today. So many of you might be thinking, well, yeah, sure. Like, how do you even do that? Like, how is that even possible? Like, you might be thinking, why hasn't anyone ever told me that before? Or some of you might be thinking, gosh, not another mind over matter talk, right? And listen, this is not another mind over matter talk. You're not just going to think your way out of pain. But it makes sense to me if you're skeptical that it's even possible to lower your sensitivity level, probably because you've tried everything and nothing has worked. And that's because nothing you've tried directly addresses those overactive pain pathways. It doesn't directly target them. And think about it, right? The injections, the nerve blocks, even some of the pills that they say are for your nerves, they don't work all that well. And they don't have any long-lasting, long-term effect. And that's because they don't actually make any lasting changes to our pain system. And the same thing goes for a lot of the modalities that you hear about that you may have used, like the electrical stimulation, the red light therapies, or low level laser. Those things are not changing your pain pathways. Okay, even the physical therapy and the endless stretching and exercising, yes, it helps you build strength and flexibility, which is good, but it's not influencing the pain system directly. And yes, even those mind over matter methods like meditation and journaling, somatic tracking, telling your brain that you're safe, all the vagus nerve stuff, those things, they're fine, they're great. But if you've tried these approaches and you're still struggling with pain, it's because they don't have a long-term effect because they don't address the pain pathways themselves. And this is a thing. And it's one mistake that I see so many people making is, we are programmed to look for one treatment, one magic fix, programmed to look for one diagnosis and one solution. And I've had so many people ask me, Alissa, what should I do? Or Alissa, if you could tell me what I need to do, what's the one thing that I can do? And boy, do I wish it were that simple, right? Simple problems have simple solutions. Persistent pain is not a simple problem. It's a complex problem. We've already talked about how it's multifactorial. And the other thing is that depending on who you ask, if you ask, what can I do for my pain? You're going to get a different answer depending on who you ask, right? So a neurologist would tell you, oh, injections, nerve blocks, RFAs. An ortho will tell you surgery. A chiro is going to tell you adjustments. A PT is going to tell you exercise. And your crunchy neighbor will tell you some herbal remedies and essential oils. And if any one of those was the answer, then you wouldn't be here, right? You've heard it all before. Different things work for different people. And it's true that you will benefit from a combination of different strategies and treatments layered together. So some of you might need surgery. Some of you are really going to benefit from changes in your diet. Some of you are going to thrive with guided movements or sensory retraining. But either way, we need to layer those approaches together. And the same thing is true when the goal is to lower the sensitivity of the pain system. We have to layer together several strategies in order to lower overall sensitivity in order for this to work. Like I said, you learned yesterday how to manage pain flares and how to prevent pain flares, but that's not enough, okay, to solve all of your pain problems, because we now have to work on addressing the sensitivity level of the pain system. which will lower your baseline level of pain that you have day to day. You'll have lower reactivity levels so that your amplifiers, they'll still be your amplifiers, but they won't be these big boulders or rocks. They'll be smaller pebbles, right? Or they'll be grains of sand, which will help you have far less intense pain flares and less frequent pain flares. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so how do you lower the sensitivity of your pain system? I'm going to share with you the exact strategies, 7 strategies that I would use if I had chronic pain, the exact strategies that I teach my clients. These are practical strategies that you can begin to explore. So again, I'm going to share 7 strategies that will lower your overall sensitivity, that will lower your baseline level of pain. Okay. So number 1, you're going to want to learn about how pain pathways contribute to your pain. Now, you might be thinking, wait, hold on a minute, Alissa. Like I thought you said you were going to share strategies. You were going to give us strategies, not a biology lesson. But hear me out. Learning about overactive pain pathways actually is a strategy. It is a proven, effective strategy. It's actually now considered an evidence-based, proven treatment, more effective than certain medications like gabapentin, but without any of those side effects. So why is it important to learn about overactive pain pathways? What does that actually have to do with lowering your overall sensitivity? Well, think about it like this. Think about how stressful it is when something feels wrong within your body, but no one can explain it. Like, can you imagine, just as an example, if you're driving around in your car and it starts making this really loud clunking noise, and you go to every mechanic in town and no one can figure out what's wrong? Maybe, they try to repair something, but the noise is still there. And then even worse, they eventually tell you to just live with it. Or worse than that, they tell you the sound, it's all in your head. If it were me driving that car, I'd feel really stressed out. I'd feel really tense, constantly on edge. I'd be listening intently. I'd be constantly scanning everything. I'd focus on every single sound. It's like I'd be waiting for something to go wrong. That kind of uncertainty creates stress and hyper awareness. Like I'm bracing for impact. Pain isn't that different, is it? Right? When you don't really know what's happening and your team of doctors can't explain it, they can't fix it, and you're left wondering if something is really wrong, wondering what they are missing. All of that constant uncertainty keeps your pain system on high alert, constantly ramping up that sensitivity. And so when you understand how overactive pain pathways works, it takes away the mystery. It takes this uncertainty level down and the fear level down. Instead of feeling like your body is betraying you or that you're broken, you begin to understand that the pain isn't random or all in your head. It's incredibly therapeutic. You have to know why you hurt before you can heal, because otherwise you're going to keep searching. You're going to be in that loop of searching all the time, endlessly, and never finding what you're looking for. And this kind of understanding goes deeper, right? This isn't just about regulating your nervous system or calming your fight or flight response. Yes, that is important. But I mean, just as an example, my client, Melissa, even though she'd read all the books, she knew about the mind-body connection, she did the mindfulness and the meditation and even somatic tracking. And it wasn't until she learned that having overactive pain pathways wasn't just a stress response or an emotional tension kind of thing, but the actual rewiring of her pain system. That's when things really clicked for her. And it helped her to shift out of that constant stress and that hypervigilance, right? She could finally relax and she was like no longer bracing for impact. So yes, understanding your pain pathways is a critical step. It's like turning down the volume on an overly sensitive alarm system. And also, it empowers you to take the most appropriate actions moving forward, right? Can you see how that works? Yes. With me so far? Okay. Now, The next strategy that will help lower your overall sensitivity is breathing. I know, breathing, like really, breathing is boring. Okay, like I'm going to be honest with you, no one wants to be told to breathe. It sounds too simple to be able to actually make a difference. But breathing drills are the most effective tools to shift your body out of fight or flight mode and into a rest, digest, and recover state. And the truth is, doing some simple breathing drills by themselves isn't going to magically cure you. But when we pair breathing drills with other strategies like movement or sensory retraining, you're creating this environment where your body can heal and adapt, repair, and recover, right? So yes, simple breathing drills, that doesn't have to be anything fancy. This is a foundational piece. And they help you with the next strategy, actually. So the next strategy is sleep and routines. We all know that sleep is critical, but when it comes to retraining pain pathways, we've got to have good sleep. While you sleep, your body is hard at work pruning those synapses, trimming away unneeded connections, strengthening the ones that you do need. So sleep is crucial in this process. And also, it's really hard to get good sleep when you have pain. Most of you listening have tried everything to get better sleep, but you're still struggling. And my clients are no different. And yet, for some reason, they're gaining on average an extra hour of sleep per night. So what's their secret? I'll tell you, consistency. Okay. Going to bed and waking up at the same time every night and every morning. Your body craves consistency. Consistent routines provide a sense of calm and predictability. And when your day-to-day patterns, your daily patterns are more predictable, your body is constantly trying to, or I should say, when your routines are unpredictable, your body is constantly trying to adapt and keep up. But when we have those consistent routines, like a consistent bedtime or a calming wind down routine at the end of the day, you're giving your body cues that it's safe, that it's time to relax, and that sleep is the next natural step. Sleep becomes a habit. So sleep and routines aren't just kind of a nice to have, they're essential. They help to create that stable foundation for recovery to happen. And while it may seem easier said than done, yes, it is, right? But this is an incredibly powerful tool when practiced consistently to lower that overall sensitivity level of the pain system. Okay. The next strategy is pushing to it and not through it. If you've been in my world for a while, you've probably heard me talk about this. So what does this mean? Well, pushing to it, not through it means not being overly cautious and avoiding things. It means working up to the edge of what is manageable without crossing into that territory where you're overdoing it and triggering a flare-up. So it's not avoiding activities or pushing yourself and paying for it later. It's about staying in that zone where it's not going to worsen your symptoms. And this way, you're showing your pain system that the activity or the amplifier, right, is safe. Instead of reinforcing the fear and the pain pattern, right? If every time you bend down and you have back pain, it just reinforces the fear that says that bending is bad. And it reinforces that pattern. If A, then B. If we bend, then pain. So we need to interrupt that pattern. Pushing to it, not through it, breaks that pattern down. It starts priming your system, telling your system and proving to your system that this activity is safe. And even if your pain doesn't worsen during the activity, but flares up kind of later on, this principle still applies. Okay, it's all about staying within your limits, which might take some time and practice to figure out, but I promise you, you can still learn it. You can still implement it, even if it's not perfect. Over time, like I said, this helps to reduce those programmed pain patterns, those automatic pain responses, and it reduces overall sensitivity of your pain system. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, the next strategy is nerve sensitivity exercises, and this is a big one. Okay, there are some specific movements that will lower the sensitivity of your nerves, right? The nerves in your body. And if you've ever felt like your nerves are on edge or overly sensitive or firing like crazy, you're probably not wrong. Okay. Nerves can become sensitive. And this is why even small movements or seemingly harmless activities can feel disproportionately painful. So these nerve sensitivity exercises, these are movements that gently retrain your nerves to respond more appropriately instead of treating everything like a threat. Now, unlike stretches and exercises that target your muscles and joints, these movements specifically target your nerves. So they're a little bit different. Now, here's the thing. I know you're probably thinking, Alissa, just tell me how to do them. Like, and I know that you want me to give you examples, but I need to be very clear here. These movements must be done correctly and tailored to your situation. You need to know how to do them without flaring yourself up. You need to know how to modify them, because if they're done improperly or too aggressively, they can aggravate your already sensitive nerves and make the problem worse. And we do not want that. So personalized modifications to these are key, because what works for one person might make you worse or flare you up. And I would hate to show you something today that causes you more pain, and then you start to think, oh my God, this whole approach won't work for me, because I'm telling you right now, that's probably not the case. So what I can tell you is that these exercises involve precise movements that target specific nerves, and when done correctly, nerves love them. They lower the baseline level of sensitivity overall. Okay, cool. Okay, what else? So the next strategy involves sensory and tactile retraining. Okay, these are strategies that can help the brain and body reconnect and reprogram how sensory inputs are processed. Because if the brain is getting bombarded with these messages from those sensitive nerves and it can't keep up, these normal sensations like light touch, pressure, temperature, changes in blood supply, they feel like a threat. Okay, this is why some sensations feel exaggerated. You get pain with certain textures, for example. Clients have described unusual sensations like itching or heaviness, lightning bolts, buzzing, feeling like ants are crawling. And when you try to describe it to someone else, it sounds like totally crazy, but it's not. This happens when the pain system becomes overly sensitive. And so there are certain sensory retraining strategies, again, that are going to be personalized to what you're dealing with, that can help teach your brain that these sensations are safe again. Okay. Now, the final strategy is strengthening and stretching. Yep. Not rocket science. Now, I know that you've already tried physical therapy before. You've stretched, you do your foam rolling, you do your best to stay active. And you've probably been told to follow the old no pain, no gain mantra. Okay. Maybe you were given some generic exercises to do and do them over and over and over. And that's what you were told, even when they weren't helping or they were making your pain worse. That being said, I'm sure that you'd benefit from gaining strength in certain areas and improving flexibility, because there are certainly areas that are probably stiff and tight. There's probably some physical things going on, so we can work on that and improve that. But we want to get out of that outdated no pain, no gain model. Okay, you need to make some small tweaks in your approach so that you're working with your pain system and not against it. So pushing through pain all the time won't help. It just reinforces those pain pathways and makes it harder for you to recover. Plus, how do you know if you've injured yourself, right? And if every time you exercise, it takes you 3-4 days a week to recover, it's hard to be consistent and make meaningful progress. Okay, so there's a few small tweaks to make in your approach, and we can start layering in the strengthening and stretching components so that you can build your physical resilience, which is also important to help lower the overall sensitivity. Okay, does that make sense? Now, can you see how taking all these strategies and layering them together could potentially benefit you, and how it can lower the overall sensitivity of your system? Okay, and can you see how no single strategy is enough on its own, right? These strategies are not standalone fixes. They work together like pieces of a puzzle to address the deeper issue of your sensitive pain system. Each strategy helps in its own way to dial down the sensitivity, right? Learning about overactive pain pathways takes the fear and mystery out of your pain. Breathing and sleeping strategies help your system rest and recover. Routines bring calm and predictability, which your body craves. Pushing to it and not through it teaches your pain system that movement is safe, activity is safe, and it breaks down those automatic hardwired pain patterns. Okay, nerve sensitivity exercises help directly retrain those nerves that are firing like crazy. The sensory and tactile retraining helps to improve your brain's processing of sensory information, of sensory inputs, so that it's processing it correctly and reduces that alarm response. And then, of course, strengthening and stretching, it builds your physical resilience. And so when we put all of these pieces together, it lowers that overall sensitivity of the pain system, and flare-ups become less intense and less frequent, right? Your baseline pain level between flare-ups starts to decrease, and you'll experience longer stretches of good days. And most importantly, you start feeling more in control. Now, I know that this can feel like a lot to take in, but you don't have to do all of this at once. You could just pick, one of these strategies each week to start implementing 1 week at a time, right? Start small and focus on consistency over perfection. I feel like I need to repeat that. Focus on consistency over perfection. It does not have to look perfect, because otherwise there's no perfect, okay? There's no perfect. And if you're sitting there listening and you know that you need a little help putting all of this together and you want structure and you want a proven plan, then I'd love to have a conversation with you so that we can chat about what's been keeping you stuck and how I might be able to help you. So if you'd like to set up a call, I'm going to leave a link to book yourself in using my online scheduler right here. But because I know we covered a lot today and over the last few sessions, by now you should have an idea of what you can do when your pain flares, how to manage when your pain flares, how you should have an idea of what some of your protectors are, right? You should also have an idea of how you can actually predict and prevent your pain flares. You know that you know what your, not just your triggers are, but what your amplifiers are. And you also know what strategies that you can use to lower the overall sensitivity of your pain system. Okay, so I know that we covered a lot, but hopefully you're more equipped today than you were a few days ago. And I'm sure that this has opened up quite a few questions. So if you're with me live, go ahead and type your questions into the chat. Any questions that you have, we're going to do a little Q&A. I'd like to take some time just to answer your questions. So type them in. And this was actually a question that someone messaged me. So how do I push to it and not through it when the pain comes on later? Like my pain doesn't spike until hours after I do something, so I can't just stop the moment it comes on. So yes, right? So this is exactly how it is for most of my clients, right? The pain doesn't worsen while you're doing something specifically, but it worsens after the fact. So pushing to it and not through it isn't just about stopping when you reach the point of discomfort. It also means that you have to take into consideration your body's response after the fact and then adjust. I tell my clients that you have to factor in those delayed responses as well. Okay. Another question, can you give some examples of sensory retraining strategies? So is it desensitization? Like, what is it? So yeah, again, there are a series of strategies that help your body and your pain reprocess these sensory signals in a way that decreases the sensitivity. And it actually is like, it's like we're teaching the brain and body to speak the same language again. And so this is why desensitization doesn't really work all that well. Desensitization is where you touch the skin with different textures until it stops hurting. And the theory is that you'll just accommodate to it, right? You'll just acclimate to it. But what happens is it teaches you to further disconnect, right? You learn to dissociate, or you get used to the pain rather than retraining your brain. So an example of one of the strategies that I teach involves using a mirror. And this strategy, it was actually initially used to treat amputees with phantom limb pain, where they have pain in the limb that is no longer there. So we use a mirror to retrain their brain, because even though the foot may be amputated, the foot in the brain is still there. So those pathways are still firing. So it's interesting. It also works in the same way to retrain the brain, even if you still have the limb or limbs or body parts, right? So I don't see any other questions right now in the chat. So that will be all the time that we have for today. Those are some good questions to start with. I'm sure your minds are all kind of going right now and thinking. But I hope that you found these sessions helpful. I'd love to hear about your success with implementing some of these strategies. If you are so inclined, let me know. I'd love to hear how it goes for you. You can message me on Instagram at Pain Crusader. I'd love to hear from you and if you thought this was helpful so that I can bring you more content like this. So thank you for joining me, everyone. Bye for now.